Let's speak on something near and dear to my heart. If you're in a great relationship, but you feel there's this lingering thing of things could be different, things could be better, there's things about them I'm not the biggest fan of, but overall it's a great relationship, this conversation is for you. This conversation comes from my experience of being in a relationship for 7 years, and for the first 3, really having internal battles of redefining what a relationship looks like to me, how I show up in one, not dating my type, how to get over that, and a whole lot of things going from the first 3 years of our relationship to now. It is completely different, and we are in a relationship that I would like to say I feel totally alive in. I feel lit up, I feel supported, I feel loved, and I feel more free than constrained, which I thought was something in relationship. I feel satisfied. And the biggest thing is I feel open to talk about the things that come up in my personal human experience and express in a space where it's safe enough to actually teamwork on that and what we're both navigating. So something I want to speak on is you have a great relationship, but you're in the ick phase. Oh, and that is backwards for you, but it says ick phase. I'll figure out how to use this and not have it all backwards. The ick phase is that lovely phase that I feel like in the newer parts of a relationship where it's great. You're like, this person checks all the boxes. It's awesome. And then one thing comes up and you're like, oh, that really puts me off. Is that a deal breaker? Oh my God, is this a deal breaker? I can't believe I have them meet people. I can't believe I thought of a future with this person. And this is usually where I've noticed and have experienced for myself kind of this spiral happen of thoughts of like, oh my God, I thought they were great, but oh my God, but there's this thing that you feel is really stirring an emotion in your body that you do not like. And when this comes up, it usually seems like it can be a deal breaker, but this is this decision point in the relationship. So I'm going to do my best to write down these notes and explain it as clear as possible. Now, when we come to this decision point, we have kind of something that usually happens with it. We have this feeling of like, oh, I don't like when they do that. Maybe it's an action that they're doing that you aren't the biggest fan of. So I'm going to use the example because it's been a little bit more present in my life and some friends' experiences, is them being on their phone. They don't like it. They think it's disgusting. They don't, and not necessarily just their phone, but social media use. They do not think the guy should be using social media how much that he is. So let's take this topic. Now, in this decision of the ick stage, you have the chance to either express the ick and talk about it, or you have to get over it in yourself. Never bring it up, but you have to get over it. Now, this can go some ways. In the ick phase, we have usually the feeling, and then there's a response of some sort. The response can be, usually it can start out as like you're hinting towards the person to do something different. I know as women, we think we're being really clear, but you're doing a lot of hinting. You're doing, it's kind of this ruminating spiral that you're going into. You can't really see that. Follow along with what I say. And then it could come out as either passive aggressive, making comments about his use of it, not directly being like, hey, can we talk about this? But just being like, ew, I think it's really gross when people do this. Just making little remarks, hoping they'll get the hint and change their actions. Or another thing we can do is thinking that guys understand when we're like, oh, but I love how this person does this other thing. Not even slightly related to the topic of conversation that you're feeling the ick about, but you're just like dropping little hints here and there, hoping he gets it because you're just going through it and you're like, I can't say it straight to him. How rude is that? How could I be blunt about this without being so blunt? And it's kind of this choice point. And it can come out as you're hinting, you're ruminating and you're spiraling. It's passive aggressive that can come out where it's just little jabs here and there. Or actually highlighting, that opposite thing that I said. Now in this decision point, by taking an action on that feeling you're feeling in your body, you then create a different situation. So because you felt something, you are now responding differently based on the feeling that you're having in your body. Now they are going to respond to how you're responding. So what happens is we will have this feeling in our body and we will change how we react and respond to people. And in turn, they change how they respond and react to us. And it's kind of this like trickle down effect. Now, this is where this builds up enough, this ick phase, that you're like, something needs to happen. He either needs to change or I need to leave. This is that decision point. Now in this, the symptom of those tiny little reactions while you're in this like thought process of kind of spiraling of like, what do I do? The symptoms that come from that is when you react different and you make those little jabs, those little comments, those little remarks and drops, hints, it changes their behavior because they're responding to something different. Now, something that I've noticed in, again, my relationships and other people's, when they're expressing this kind of situation they're going in, is usually and I'm speaking very much in like the female to male role, but it can work otherwise, but just observing male reactions, it can go to actually then like hiding or just lying about it. It can be distancing. They do some avoiding or a total shutdown. There may be some more in there, but usually there's some sense of disconnection. They feel something's off, so they respond to that offness. They know you've been making comments being like, oh, it's so gross when people do this. You're an iPad child, whatever it is. That allows them to not take it as like, oh, they want me to change. Instead, it feels like a judgment. It feels like belittling, emasculation. It in turn, the response to that is shutting down. There's some sort of like shame and embarrassment there where it's like, well, I guess I just won't let them see it. Now, in this moment, you are already creating a little bit of a separation in this relationship because you guys aren't on the same page. Now, that is the symptom of when we're in this like thought process. From here, you have two options. The two options, I hope you can see this better. The two options, are either you can continue hinting, don't judge my spelling. You can continue hinting to them, or you can do confrontation. So with these two options, if you continue hinting and being like, I don't want to be blunt, it's too early to say this, you don't want to bring it up because what? Confrontation? Uncomfortable. You want to avoid that. You don't want to be too picky. You don't want to be bitchy. You don't want to, whatever it is for the reason that you're going to choose continue hinting. The results of continue hinting are you're basically shoving stuff under the rug until it gets big enough that either there's the ending of the relationship or there's resentment. I don't know what other way the continue hinting could go. I've seen long-term relationships where this is the case and the woman is resentful and the man is more closed off and they continue this relationship for years and years and years. And it doesn't feel satisfying. It doesn't feel, for them maybe it doesn't, but it doesn't look satisfying. You're not coming together, you're not growing, it's not open. It's not necessarily safe because neither party feels safe to actually express what's really going on. Is this internal feeling here, or that's, I guess not, that's just saying there's two options. Is this internal feeling that can either go both ways. Let's actually draw that. Okay. Now, this goes for more than just the ick phase. This also goes for just something you're generally feeling that you're not enjoying about it. Maybe you want some changes. Maybe you want to show up differently. Maybe you haven't been honest. When there's some sort of issue, don't even know if issue is the word, something you're feeling in your body that you're not feeling too satisfied with in this situation, that comes here. So we know the result of this. Pretty much dead end, dissatisfaction, unhappy. You can continue it for a long time, but you probably won't be very fulfilled. Or we can do lovely confrontation. Now this one I wanted to label that something different because I find people are like, oh, I don't like confrontation. But when we don't like confrontation, we don't like speaking up about our needs. We think confrontation has to be a bad thing, that it has to be angry, aggressive, rude, and it has to put someone else down. Confrontation seems like I avoid conflict. Conflict usually seems like angry, aggressive, a fight. Confrontation can be done lovingly. Confrontation does not have to be explosion. Confrontation is just confronting the feelings that are inside you. So I want to break down confrontation a little bit because I think confrontation can actually look a couple different ways. Now, what you get when you do confrontation is you get more honesty. You can build trust between the two of you. You can repair. You can have more clarity. You can have more closeness, and you have growth within your relationship. Because if you choose this route, you guys have just overcome your first hurdle in a very mature way. Now, the idea in relationships is how mature can you be with it? We are adults dating other adults, but lots of times we don't act like adults. We act like children that are scared to communicate and say their needs. Now, that's not a judgment, that's an observation, because there's a lot of reasons why we don't feel safe to express our needs. That needs to be worked through. Now, I'm not saying this is an easy process, but if you want a really fulfilling relationship where you feel good in long term, this is the process that needs to happen. However that looks for you. This is just some guidelines I've figured out from doing it myself and observing. So in this, what you get, good relationship, satisfaction, joy, safety, and so much more that you can't even imagine if you've never taken this route before. This leads to some wonderful, wonderful things and a relationship that you've never experienced prior if you have not taken this route of confrontation. So with confrontation is essentially a discussion between the two of you. It takes not being in the emotional state. It takes de-escalating your emotional turmoil and process and either anger, whatever that feeling is. It takes de-escalating that and approaching this in the kindest, most loving way while still understanding your emotions may still come up in the process. Also with confrontation, another thing I want to point out is self-responsibility, because you need to be responsible only for yourself when confronting. You cannot control the other person's response, and you cannot control how they may emotionally feel from it. You can only control how you are verbally approaching the situation. You necessarily can't even control your emotions that come up, because those just come up. But emotional regulation is being able to say like, okay, chill, I know we feel this. How can we express this in a way that's not victim blaming, pointing fingers, emasculating? It's like, here's how I'm feeling. So that's something you want to keep in mind in this confrontation part. Now, something I wrote down is confrontation is explaining your subjective experience. So your little human here is feeling some things. Those are the feelings. That's your human feeling things. Whatever those are feelings. Your human is feeling things, and you're trying to explain that experience, irregardless of the other person. Now, this may be tough to do. This is a practice. This is not oh, I logically get it, I can do that. You can try, but it is a practice. So it's explaining your personal experience as a human. So in this life, others are just kind of players in your world. Your human experience is certain things, irregardless of if it's that person or another person in their same situation. Yes, it is them that's creating the situation to feel those things, but it is not them that is the issue. It is your person experiencing what is going on. That is what we need to be able to explain in this moment in the most loving way. And there's a few tips on how to do that. So it's your experience as it is, as yourself. It's not about them. And you need to remember that. So you need to be able to go into this conversation in a way where you feel grounded in that and actually like sure of that and be like, okay, I'm not coming at it angry. I'm not coming at it pointing fingers. I'm coming in lovingly and being like, I've checked this out myself and let's approach it. Now, the best way I feel like to start with this confrontation part about something you are feeling is, I don't know how to say this. I don't know how to say this. And I don't want you to take it personally, but I've been really feeling this way. And it's all about you. It is not about them, because as soon as you make it about them, there gives space for defensiveness. And then in defensiveness, you become defensive. Now it's like fights on. Now that's messy. That's how we usually picture confrontation. There is other ways of it. We're just not usually shown it. So in this, confrontation can be, what is that? Yeah, so if it's approached in that way, yeah, I don't know how to say this. I don't want you to take this personally. When I see you, we'll go back to that phone example. When I see you on your phone all the time, honestly, it just makes me feel really grossed out. I like when people are doing something free with their time. I don't really know why it bugs me as much as it does, but I'd rather you spend your time doing literally anything else. But when you're just scrolling, there's something about that just feels mindless. It's not very attractive. I don't personally feel you need a reason beyond that in explaining how you're feeling. But as soon as you're vague about it, you're not very honest. And you can be honest saying like, I don't know what it is about this. Dissect yourself as well. Maybe it's because just the way you were grown up. But also those things that you're expecting of others, you need to reflect on yourself as, is this really important to me, or is this just triggering because it's different than the expectation I once held for how this could look? Because sometimes those expectations need to be explored a little bit of like, does this expectation actually benefit me, or is it just an expectation I had? And maybe I could try out not holding that expectation as such like high standards or like as such importance, I guess. There's been a lot of times I've had expectations of how people should be or things should look that once I've looked at myself, I'm like, it's not as important as I thought, but I needed to check that out. And then once it was, I needed to express that in a way that I could. While also taking it off the table of like, take every word I say. Being like, hey, I don't know how to say this, but this is what I'm feeling. And then they get to respond. And if you do this in a way where it is clear and it is as kind as possible and it is as real to what's going on for you, the vulnerability, if someone's a decent high value person and you're not blaming, you're not pointing fingers, chances are they're going to respond to you in a loving way as well. Because you said it in a loving way. But if you don't, or it lacks clarity, then you can assume a lack of clarity in the answer as well. So something I want to point out with this is if you do confrontation in the way of explosion, I guess actually breaking it down, confrontation has two ways. Maybe I'm all over the place, but follow along. This has either a discussion, or explosion. All over the place here, but if you react to confrontation in the route of explosion or reactive or vagueness and pointing, because you can confront in a way where it's just kind of something broke the camel's back, the straw that broke the camel's back, you just lash out. And it's an explosion. What happens in that is usually a repetition of this pattern. You respond a certain way, they react a certain way, you have disconnection, you may have more problems, and it may lead to a breakup, essentially. Because you're not getting anywhere. You're exploding, and you never get anywhere from exploding and not clearly communicating what's going on. Now, in an explosion, it could look like you're just a loser who's always on your phone. You're just an iPad kid. You're this, you're that, you don't do this, you do that. It's a judging. It's shaming, it's disrespect, it's unkind. Or one that I don't think is as easily known for confrontation is you quietly quit. You don't say anything and you just disconnect and don't give the other person room to at least realize what's going on, maybe understand and then fix or change if they wanted to, because you quietly quit. And that says a lot more about you than it does the other person, because you're opting out and you don't feel you're worthy enough to say what you need to say. Or it's a lack of explaining. It's a lack of actually just explaining what is going on and that subjective reality we talked about. And it's pointing. It's a lot less reflective when you point the finger. It does not show maturity. Maturity is being able to express what you're feeling regardless of the other person and without shaming or blaming or judging. So since we're mature adults here, we can try the discussion. And again, sometimes discussion leads to a little bit of like escalation, but the mature thing is being like, okay, I need a minute. I'll come back to this later. For myself, I'm an avoider. Sometimes I'd be walking out of the room very rude, but I didn't say anything. I just left, and I could have said I need a minute, but in the beginning phases, it was not like that. I would just leave. It was abrupt. But as an avoider, the closeness is something we aim to come back to. Now, in this, I feel like I kind of wrapped up on my notes here, but I want to point out something that I feel like is very, very important in all of this that I'm going to do another video on, explaining deeper, is the communication. Is this saying that I've listened to many times, is we've had this conversation so many times. When you're going through this situation and maybe you're in an ick phase or an issue has come up and you're like talking to the girlfriends about it, you're like, I've just told him so many times. We've talked about it. I've already done that. And you may find yourself saying that and you truly feel like you have. I'm not calling you a liar, but I am saying that maybe your idea of clear conversation was not his idea of clear conversation. Now this leaves a little bit of like, is that a paradox where it's the opposites? Contrasting ideas. that maybe he does not have the same idea of clear as you do, or he didn't realize it was important to you as you said it was. Now this can look like, I've heard this situation and then I dive a little deeper and I'm like, so what does that look like? What did the conversation look like? Did you say the exact thing you're saying to me now to him? And they're like, well, yeah, I kind of brought it up. Like we were sitting there watching TV and I said something and he just was like, and moved on about it. And I'm like, okay, so we need to realize as men and women, we have two different brains and they work quite differently. And I'm going to explain this brief because I want to go into it more based on my understanding of Alison Armstrong's teaching on men and women. She has studied men for years. And it's this understanding that men are very single focused. When they are told that something is important, they will focus. But when it's not, everything is not important. So if you're trying to bring up something important while you're in the middle of doing something, while they're in the middle of cooking, while they're in the middle of watching TV, and you don't express the importance of it to you, do not expect them to take it as seriously as you're taking it right now. This is one of the biggest and most helpful things I've ever learned in relationships. And it's something we're still learning. We've definitely gotten better, but I don't think communication is ever 100%. I think probably get to like 95% clear when you communicate things, but it's having them on the same page of the importance this is to you, of like, hey, can I chat with you about something? And they're like, oh yeah, all ears. Make sure they're not doing something else in that time to be like, no, this is serious. Like, or they'll be like, yeah, wait a minute, I'm doing this. And get their full attention. You can't expect anything else from them or their emotions or anything because, again, we're taking self-responsibility in this. But it's expressing it in a way where it's like, hey, don't know how to say this. Don't take it personally. This is what I am going through. Not pointing fingers again. This is what I am going through as a human. I don't know what it is. Let them respond. And if I'm going to give another tip, give them 30 seconds to respond. Give them time because they're thinking on it because they realize it's important. They may have more time to think on it than women do. And just realizing that communication is different for both parts. We hear things differently, we say things differently, and what we say may not be actually what we meant. And someone may not take what we say as what we said because the tone as well can play into it. So I guess the main goal with speaking on this is to get a relationship that is thriving, that you feel safe in, you feel comfortable, and you are satisfied in overall. 98% of the time you're satisfied in, because I truly feel that's the case. You can be satisfied and still have ups and downs. You can be satisfied and still disagree. But if the goal is not satisfaction in a relationship that gives more to your life and complements your life more than complicates it, I don't know what the point is, honestly. I wouldn't be in it. I used to think that's how relationships were. Is it would just like be a take away from your life or like trap you a little bit. It can be the exact opposite. It can be extremely empowering, and you can change and grow beyond words when you're in a relationship that is open to doing so. And it can offer you so much in this life that yes, you can have on your own, and I'm a component of finding all that on your own, but in a relationship it is doubled. So I hope we're out here having good relationships, and I hope we're out here trying to be mature adults and clearly communicate our feelings, because a true sign of actually loving yourself and caring for yourself is actually being able to express your needs and your feelings with the people that you're with. So if there's anything you feel like I missed or is different in your situation, I would love to know, because again, this has just been from observing, and this really got inspired on a conversation I've had recently with a friend going through this, and I was like, this is the third time I've heard that. I've done this so many times. And I'm like, I've been there. How have we navigated this? And through this, me and my boyfriend were able to come up with this kind of emotional process that goes on, and how to move through it in a way that brings more growth and teamwork and togetherness instead of separation, or just feeling like you're doing the same thing again and again and again, or that you're just shoving something under the rug. Because again, if you're doing that and avoiding it in the beginning of the relationship, it will come up later. It's a pile under the rug. You will come up on that later, whether it's a couple years down the road or many years down the road. So I hope you found this helpful. I'm going to get this figured out so it's a little bit easier to read and not backwards. And thank you for being here. I'd love to chat more in the comments.